Hey everybody, welcome back to Living Traditions Homestead. My name is Kevin. Well, as you know, we raise all of our own meat here on our homestead, and we've been raising pigs now for quite a few years. Most years, we save the pork belly to make bacon out of throughout the year. But this year, I've been experimenting with some other things to do with the pork belly, and what I'm about to show you today is good enough that I may just give up making bacon altogether, because this smoked pork belly that we're gonna make is going to be amazing. It's a simple recipe. I'm going to show you how to make it. We're going to put it on our electric smoker, and you're going to be just amazed when we're done how delicious this is. Well, I guess you'll be able to see it. I'll tell you how delicious it is. Let's get started. The first thing that we need to do is get our smoker preheating. Now, I do really like to use an electric smoker. I do have a non-electric smoker, just a regular wood smoker as well. But when you're busy and you've got a lot to do, like I do right now, this is the perfect solution because it's so easy to use. You just set the temperature and the time. You put your wood on every once in a while as you need more smoke, and your meat just turns out perfectly. So I've already got this set. It's turned on. We're going to be smoking this pork belly at 220 degrees, and we're going to leave it on somewhere between 4 to 6 hours. We're going to be using pecan wood to smoke this. I really like the flavor of pecan wood for smoking meat. We've got pecan trees on our property, so I went and I just got a few little sticks like this, which will be more than enough. This will probably be 3 or 4 times of smoking with just these few little sticks, which is the other really nice thing about these electric smokers, is that you don't need a ton of wood in order to smoke things. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to just break up some of this into little bitty pieces. Now, if you don't have trees on your property to use for smoking, you can buy wood in the store as well, wherever they sell smokers or grills. But you do want to be a little bit careful, especially with some of the woods like apple wood. A lot of that wood comes from apple orchards when they trim the trees, and then they sell off the extra wood to these companies to sell as smoking wood. Which sounds great, except a lot of those orchards spray a lot of chemicals on their trees throughout the year, and some of that may still be on the wood that you're going to be using for smoking. So if you have the chance to get your own from trees that you know that weren't sprayed with anything, that's really the way to go. You can use pecan, you can use hickory, whatever you have, it'll be perfect. Now on this smoker, there's just a little tray right here that you can put some pieces of wood down inside. Put that back into the smoker. Flip it around, that drops the wood into the smoke box, and in no time you'll see smoke starting to come out of the top of the smoker. So we're just going to let that get going while we make an awesome rub to put on our pork belly. Alright, so today we're going to make a very easy rub to put on this pork belly. Now this will also be good for chicken or other poultry that you want to smoke, so I'm going to make a pretty big batch of this, and we'll just keep it on the shelf for whenever we need it. It's a very simple recipe, but it's going to really bring out the flavor really well in this smoked pork belly. We're going to use a bunch of different spices here today. Now, we buy all of our spices from Azure Standard, which is a bulk buying group where we can get some very good deals on organic and bulk items. If you're not familiar with Azure Standard, we'll leave a link down below so you can check them out. It's a really easy way to save money on organic items and get bulk stuff, so you always have things on hand. Alright, so we're going to make this right here in a mason jar so we can shake this up real good. Now we're going to start with 1 cup of raw sugar. Now this is kind of somewhere in between white sugar and brown sugar as far as taste goes, but this is organic raw sugar. So we're going to use 1 cup to start with. And then we're also going to be using 1/2 cup of pink Himalayan salt. Now if you don't have pink Himalayan salt, that's fine, just use whatever kind of salt you have. I'm not going to go crazy measuring all of this out, we're just going to, do our best guess. So 1/2 cup of salt, and now we're going to move on to all of our other spices. We're going to use 2 tablespoons of black pepper. 1/2 of a tablespoon of garlic powder, 4 tablespoons of paprika. You can use smoked or regular. A half of a tablespoon of either chili powder or cayenne pepper. Depends how much spice you like in it. I'm using chili powder. Then a half of a tablespoon of cumin. And finally, a half of a tablespoon of onion powder. And that's going to be our basic rub. We're just going to put a cap on this. We're going to shake this up really well, and then that will be all ready to put on our pork belly. There we go. That's all set. Look how easy that was to make. This will store for a year or more if you just keep it on a shelf, and this way you always have it handy. Alright, I'm going to go in, I'm going to get the pork belly, we'll bring it out, and it'll be time to start putting our rub on so we can get it on the smoker. So here is our pork belly. Now again, this is off of one of the pigs that we raised last year. Look how amazing that looks. We're going to get ready to start putting our rub on. We're going to start trying to work as quickly as we can because it's summer and the flies are here, and so we need to hurry so we can get this on the smoker so we don't have smoked fly too. I'm going to put some gloves on. For those of you who don't know, I have some pretty severe skin allergies that are mostly on my hands, which is why if you see a lot of our videos, I'm wearing gloves when we're doing a lot of work. So I like to wear gloves when I'm doing this stuff too, because sometimes the spices and things can make things even worse. So just so you know, that's why I wear gloves a lot. We're going to put a little of our rub in a separate jar so we're not getting the whole jar full of pork juice here. I'm going to just start by sprinkling some on. And then we're just going to rub that right in. And you can do this ahead of time and then refrigerate it for a while again as well. I haven't found that that makes a whole lot of difference, so I just do it right before I put it on the smoker. We're going to do this on both sides. You want to make sure you really get it on there well. Now be careful not to put too much of the rub on. I have done that in the past and thought, oh, it's going to be better with, you know, just a ton of it on, and it really kind of overpowers the taste of the smoke and the meat at the end. So don't go overboard, but you do want a good coating of it on there. Now this is 1/2 of one side of the pork belly. So you can tell, you know, on a pig, you're going to get 2 pieces like this off of each side of the pig. So you get a lot of pork belly off of a pig if you did your job right raising them, getting them good and fat. So, all right, this is all ready. We're going to go over, we're going to put this on the smoker. Now by this point, our smoker should be all preheated. So we're going to work fast. We don't want to let all the heat out, although you are going to let some out. I could smell that wood already starting to smoke, and it just smells so good. Now again, we're going to smoke this for between probably 4 or 5 hours. You can leave it on up to 6 hours if you want to, but I've found somewhere in the 4 to 5 range is perfect. Now when you buy a smoker like this, it comes with a pan to put water in there as well. I personally don't use that for pork. I use it when I smoke chicken, but I don't use it for this. I like it a little drier, and I think this turns out perfect the way I'm doing it. So there we go. We're going to put that on. We're going to leave this, and we'll check it. Normally, I don't open it until the very end because I know what it's going to look like. But for you guys, we'll come back in about 2 hours. We'll open it up, and we'll look inside and see how it's doing. Now, while this is cooking, I'm going to add more wood in here about every hour for about the first 3 hours. After that, you're not really adding a lot more smoke flavor to the meat. So I only do it for the first 3 hours, and then after that, I just let it alone. And it'll be the perfect amount of smoke. Well, it's been 2 hours since we put the pork belly on, so we're going to open this up and I'll show you guys what it's looking like. And then while we're in there, I'm also going to put some sweet potatoes on so that we'll have these along with the pork belly when they're all done. Now these won't really take up much of the smoke flavor at this point, but they will get done along with the meat, so it's one less thing we have to make separately. Let's open this up and see what it looks like. Look how beautiful that's looking. So we're just going to put our sweet potatoes in here. Now we're just going to shut this back up so we don't let too much of the heat out. We're going to leave this for another 2 hours and then it will be time to eat. This is going to be so amazing. Now that our sweet potatoes are on and our meat is well on its way, we're going to get started on the last thing that we're going to have with dinner tonight, and that is some homemade bread. Now this is a bread that I really like to make because it's so easy, barely takes any ingredients, and again, it's almost one of those hands-off type things. You don't need to knead it, you don't need to let it rise, it's more of a batter type bread. It's actually called beer bread. It's a very simple recipe. It actually calls for self-rising flour, but because we use organic flour, we don't buy self-rising flour, so we're going to make our own, which is so easy to do. Self-rising flour is really just flour, salt, and baking powder, so it's easy to make. We're going to start with 3 cups of organic all-purpose flour. Again, if you have regular, that's fine. Or if you already have the self-rising flour, this recipe is just going to call for 3 cups of self-rising flour. So 3 cups of all-purpose flour, 1.5 tablespoons of baking powder, and 3/4 of a teaspoon of salt. And that's all it is to make self-rising flour. So we're just going to whisk that together to make sure everything is mixed up really well. Now we're actually going to be making this in our Dutch oven outside, so we don't have to heat the house up. Since it's warm out today, we're going to cook everything outside. Alright, so we've got that done. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take just a little bit of lard. This is home rendered lard from our pigs. I'm going to put that in my Dutch oven. I'm going to make sure that that is well oiled, because otherwise this bread does have a tendency to stick. Even though this Dutch oven is pretty well seasoned, I want to make sure that I do have a good layer of fat in there to make it non-stick. And now that we have that ready, the last thing is to add 1 can or 12 ounces of beer to the flour and mix that up well. If you don't have beer, go ask your neighbor, they probably got beer. You could use non-alcoholic beer, it doesn't matter what kind of beer you use, nothing special. Just mix that up. And you don't want to overmix, kind of like when you're making biscuits, you don't want to overmix this. Okay, that's all mixed together. And now we're just going to put that into our Dutch oven. Now this is a very sticky dough. Somewhere between a dough and a batter, I would say. I'm going to put that kind of in the middle of our Dutch oven. We're going to put the lid on, and I've got some briquettes started. We're going to take this over and we're going to get this baking. Alright, we're going to bake this in our fire pit here. And we're going to do this at 375 degrees, or about that. So if you're doing it in the oven, it would be 375 degrees for an hour. We're going to put about 6 or 7 briquettes down here on the ground. I'm using a 10-inch Dutch oven. So we're going to put 7 on the ground. And we're going to put 18 briquettes on top. That should give us about 375 degrees. And that's all there is to it. After about 45 minutes, I'll check on it, make sure it's not getting too done. But in general, it takes about an hour at 375 degrees. Alright, it's been just a little bit over an hour. I think our bread is just about done, so let's take a look at it. That looks perfect. Look at that. Nice and brown on top. Now this is kind of a crunchy bread, which is perfect. We're going to take this out. We'll take it over the table, and then I think everything else is about ready too, so we'll take everything else off the smoker. All right, let's take off our sweet potatoes and that awesome pork belly. Look how amazing that looks. Now if you like ribs, pork belly is awesome because it tastes a lot like ribs except without the bones. And the next day, if you have some left over, it's awesome on a sandwich. All right, let's take those sweet potatoes out. All right, let's take it over the table. It's time to eat. So this is the perfect summer meal because it's completely cooked outside. You don't have to heat your house up. The meat smells amazing. That bread is awesome. You guys, if you don't have a smoker, at least try the bread because this bread recipe is amazing. But I would really encourage you to try smoking some meat. Now, if you don't raise your own meat, I encourage you to find a local farmer that does. Get yourself a smoker and try this. Even if you're in the city, you can do this. But this is such an awesome meal. Now, if you're interested in the smoker that we have, I did put a link to it in our Amazon shop. I'll tell you guys a secret. I like it so much that this is actually the second one that I'm on. We've been using basically the same smoker for about 10 or more years now. I've actually worn one out, but we use it a lot. So give it a try. You guys remember that the best way you can help our channel is by sharing our videos with all of the people that you think would like our lifestyle. And as always, thank you so much for stopping by the homestead. Take care and God bless.
God bless.